Obama's back in the news. She's obsessing over race again. I know you're shocked. Shocked. Here's a little bit of that from the Storehouse and Friends podcast this past Sunday. Top 54.
If I hear of someone whose fashion that I like and I know that they're a person of color, I try to make it a point. But the clothes have to be available. You know, I think we can all do some work to think about that balance in our wardrobes, you know? What does our closet look like and who's in it?
Megyn Kelly is pulling no punches after a clip of Michelle Obama resurfaced online and quickly went viral. Some people are calling the remark outright racist, while others argue it's being twisted and taken completely out of context. So, what did Michelle actually say? Where did the quote come from? And why is it suddenly everywhere? Once you hear the full statement for yourself, it's easy to see why the internet is split. Stick around, because the context matters here.
And then we live in a culture where people with power prey on fear to get more power. Again, she's talking about very clearly demonization of black people by white people so they can get more power. She's talking about Trump. I want to make you all afraid of each other. How does he do that? How? She really needs to take a hard look at the Democratic Party, which is obsessed with skin.
Before we get into it, if you enjoy this kind of breakdown, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You might be surprised how much it helps. Michelle Obama is often praised for turning everyday moments into broader life lessons. This time, she focused that attention on something most people see as personal and simple: the clothes they choose to wear.
Don't you think, Britt, like the average person is just, do I like this or don't? No one's thinking about the skin color of the designer. Like, that's such a weird thing to ask us to focus on. And in that way, clothing is very meritocratic.
It just screams privileged. I don't have time, or I'm not privileged enough to have time to go and find out exactly what melanin type was a part of constructing my jeans. I just buy jeans because they look good.
The reaction was immediate and intense, mainly because she didn't just talk about her own style or highlight a few designers she personally likes. Instead, the message came across as a broader expectation, something people should be doing, not just something she prefers.
Your time in the White House. Okay, I don't care about skin color or how we pray or how we love. We're all the same. What keeps us from seeing that is fear, right? I don't know you. You're different. She's very clearly talking about how white people view black people. So I've got to be afraid of you, and I have to make sure you don't come into my space. Okay, if anything, what we're seeing on college campuses and elsewhere right now are black affinity groups or Hispanic affinity groups into...
She encouraged shoppers to intentionally make sure their closets include pieces from black designers and other underrepresented creators, framing a wardrobe almost like a checklist of social responsibility rather than a personal collection of clothes.
Finding people that we're normal people. Yes, we're black. But we bleed red and we love red, white, and blue.
Oh my God. Everyone knows that. You don't have to keep reminding us that you're black, just like your friend Karine Jean-Pierre. You don't have to work it into every single conversation, and also raise it as a way of saying the country's racist. We're normal, even though we're black.
Megyn Kelly pushed back hard on that idea, not because she doubts the talent or ability of black designers, but because she believes Michelle's framing unnecessarily injects race into a space where it doesn't belong.
Or somehow you've fallen down on your inclusive whatever duties. Do you do that, Will? I'm sure when you got dressed today, did you look into Patagonia? Like, what is the color, the skin color of those behind the brand?
Oh, yeah. If they're not white, I won't buy it. Yeah, it has to be from white people. It's imperative. Yeah. Well, ridiculous. They say there's all these race issues in America, and racism is the biggest issue, and we have to fight against these things. And you have the most famous people.
According to Megyn, that's where the argument completely falls apart. She says it assumes the average person shops like a wealthy activist with a stylist on speed dial, instead of like a normal person looking for affordable, durable, everyday clothing. That disconnect makes the message feel unrealistic. Megyn points out the difference between saying I found a great designer and wanted to share them, and saying people should deliberately build their wardrobe based on the race of the brand's creators. Those are two very different messages.
She's promoting this fashion book that she's doing, which is such a joke. This is like me doing a book on basketball. Like, Michelle Obama is not a fashion icon, no matter what Anna Wintour tried to tell us. That's obvious. No one's inspired by her fashion at all. She knows nothing about fashion, same as I know nothing about sports. Okay? That some of us just need to admit our weaknesses. But we have to go along with this. She's out there lecturing us on wokeness and America and fashion. Okay. And here's the latest offering as she sits down with Stephen Colbert.
Michelle has positioned herself as a voice on social trends, lifestyle choices, and even the broader state of the country. This particular conversation took place during a sit-down with Stephen Colbert, and according to Megyn, once a racial lens is placed on everyday items like sweaters or shoes, qualities like craftsmanship, originality, and usefulness start to fade into the background. Instead of choosing something because you like it or need it, the focus shifts to whether it meets an outside expectation. Megyn argues that when influential figures frame ordinary decisions this way, it can unintentionally create divisions that weren't there before the conversation, then expands to how this kind of messaging affects society as a whole. Rather than promoting unity, it can spark tension, making people feel watched or judged over the smallest choices.
Don't you think, Brett, like the average person is just, do I like this or don't? No one's thinking about the skin color of the designer. Like, that's such a weird thing to ask us to focus on. And in that way, clothing is very meritocratic.
It just screams privileged. I don't have time, or I'm not privileged.
Megyn also points out that only someone with significant wealth could expect every clothing purchase to double. As a political statement, for most people, that mindset feels completely detached from reality. She explores the unintended consequences of turning designers into symbols instead of artists. When shoppers are encouraged to prioritize identity over quality, or creativity, designers become boxes to check rather than talents to appreciate. Megyn warns this approach can actually hurt the very people it claims to support. Instead of being recognized for skill, designers become tools for moral. Signaling the joy of discovering great work gets replaced with performative buying. Her larger point is simple shopping shouldn't feel like joining a movement.
About people like Michelle Obama and like the ones who are constantly talking about how hard everything is and how, like, you know, remember she's clapped back at Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, you know, and there was plenty to criticize with Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, but like Michelle Obama at that time was like, you know, that doesn't always work. And she wasn't talking about for working class people. She was talking about for black people. She had to play the race card when she was first lady. That, you know, you can't just get what you want if you go after it. This is just...
Megyn uses Brit's example to drive home her argument, explaining how identity labels have slowly turned into a kind of social currency. Even when intentions are positive, this mindset can quietly push an us versus them mentality. Everyday life becomes a mental checklist centered on identity, which Megyn says doesn't move society forward, it pulls it backward. Clothing stops being about enjoyment or personal style and turns into a stage where every decision is judged. The panel also notes how disconnected this message can feel when it comes from a place of wealth and comfort most people don't shop at. Luxury boutiques don't have access to niche designers and don't have time to research every purchase. That gap often leads to frustration, resistance, or people tuning out entirely.
See that hideous outfit she was wearing? I'm sorry.
That's what having too much money does for you.
I've just never met somebody so ungrateful in all my life. And what did she start it off with? People said I was hateful. Because you are. She can't stand America. She definitely can't stand Barack. And I don't think she likes herself very much either. So she's been doing this nonstop tour. And I just think there's a strain. She's woke. He's woke. Yeah. There's a strain in the woke that leads you to be absolutely miserable, which is why they too should.
Megyn argues this approach only fuels unnecessary tension and resentment. When every preference or purchase is treated like a public statement, people stop choosing freely and start second-guessing themselves over time. That leads to exhaustion and anxiety, replacing the simple joy of daily life with fear of judgment. As the discussion wraps up, Megyn broadens her critique, suggesting this reflects a larger pattern in Michelle Obama's thinking, one that frames ordinary choices through race in Megyn's view, that turns personal decisions into moral tests, shifting from guidance to cultural instruction.
You know, you need a Maureen Callahan, or dare I say, an MK. You need somebody who's living a great life, getting after it, putting points on the board, and not spending too much of their time navel gazing into how I don't have a tail. It's really sad, right? Like, that's her. She's an Eeyore. And it is, I think, her depression. And she's not somebody we should be seeking guidance or enlightenment.
The panel circles back to the bigger implications. Asking people to constantly evaluate their clothing through an identity lens doesn't promote understanding or harmony. Instead, it creates distance, defensiveness, and mistrust public figures who push this framing may unintentionally make it harder for people to relate to one another naturally. Megyn's message is clear. Michelle Obama's fashion advice highlights a deeper issue, with identity first thinking being treated as a moral standard. This isn't about rejecting innovation or ignoring overlooked talent. It's about resisting the idea that every personal choice must double as an ethical obligation. According to Megyn, life shouldn't be reduced to identity math shopping creativity, and appreciation should be free from moral scoring.
Haven't lived up to their high standards, and we're essentially being called racist. Here's Michelle Obama, who's promoting a new book on her special fashion, and sat down with People magazine and said the following in SOT 26.
As women of color, that the way our hair naturally grows out of our head is beautiful, but if we struggle to make it look like the standard, that means we are spending thousands of hours and lots of money straightening out what is naturally curly.
In Megyn's view, the issue isn't about promoting diversity, it's about turning everyday life into a non-stop moral test. That mindset isolates, instead of unites, elevates ideology over practicality, and makes simple choices feel mandatory. For most people, shopping is about finding clothes that fit, function, and last. It's not about researching a designer's background or decoding what each purchase signals socially. When influential voices frame these decisions as moral measures, it adds pressure, fuels resentment, and creates unnecessary division. Megyn argues a healthier culture emerges when people are free to focus on quality, creativity, and personal preference. Clothing shouldn't be a yardstick, it should be self-expression. Trusting people to choose based on taste and practicality restores autonomy and brings joy back to even the most basic decisions.